video is about many things. It is about men, TikTok, patriarchy, depression, isolation, radicalization, but most importantly, it's about chilling out. A video like this is a video you could get a beer with, you know? A video that knows IPA stands for India Pale Ale, but won't judge you if you think it stands for Irish Pale Ale. In fact, let's just go play darts after those guys are done. This is the type of video that references the A-Team, wears overalls and combat boots, just in case it needs to go to war or cut down an old-growth forest. A video for men, a video for women, a video for the American people, a video that knows what this country means and what that country doesn't. Monday Night Football, a dejected housewife on a floral apron illuminated by a fluorescent stove light, a TV with two real big antennae that get real hot whenever you forget to turn it off after watching Wheel of Fortune. This video is the American dream, and what could be more American and dream-like than today's sponsor? Take it away. For a long time, I thought coffee was too sophisticated for me, like the Electoral College or League of Legends, but now I've been proven wrong.
Yeah, because now what I do every single morning is I wake up and I use one of my Cometeer recyclable capsules, and I make some delicious coffee. It's easy.
Run some warm water over top, pop it out into a mug, pour some water onto it, little bit of milk, beam bam bop, done. Easy, speed run, coffee speed run, any percent. I think growing up I was always turned off by coffee because I thought of it as an adult beverage, you know? I thought you had to have like a large Hydron Collider in your home and like a CPA present, a bunch of guys in lab coats making sure you were doing it right. But now I know that's not true. I know that's not true because I have this right here. Easy. My brain is the size of a dime. My axons and dendrites are the size of a thumbtack. And I made this. Anybody can make this. I should not drink too much of that because it is 6 p.m. Anyways, all of this is just me saying thank you to Cometeer for sponsoring this video. Cometeer is a new sort of flash frozen coffee pod solution, which means they flash freeze them, which keeps them all fresh. They send them to you with dry ice in the box. It's awesome. It's like opening up a weapons cache in like Warzone or something. I don't know what kids are into these days. They can ship them to you every month and customize whether you have light roast, dark roast, however you want it. And then you just pop them in your freezer and they stay fresh until you make them. And it's super easy to make them. So it's easy. No brainer, zero brain was required there.
What am I even doing at this point? You gotta wonder. See, I realized I forgot to describe the flavor of the coffee, which is important because people drink coffee for many reasons, flavor being one of them. It's nuanced, it's smooth, it's, it's just scary milk. Once you overcome that fear, I don't know where I was going with that. It tastes good.
Anyways, thanks to Cometeer, if you use my code Ramden at checkout, you can get a free sleeve of Barista's Choice Coffee, which is 8 pods, which is 8 cups of coffee, which is 8 days of you shaking a little bit while you look at Excel. It's delicious, it's easy, it's fun, it's funky, it's fresh.
Anywho, anyhow, anyways, thank you so much to Cometeer for sponsoring this video, and click the link in the description to get $60 off across 4 boxes of delicious Cometeer frozen coffee recyclable capsules. 4. As always, text your mom this and click the link in the bio. What am I saying? Sorry, I have to go fight goblins in a different realm. So I'm off to do an expedition. Be back later.
Hi, welcome back to a video about bulking and creatine. I am a comment that you can't quite tell if it is a dog whistle or not. Mental health is perhaps the favorite subject of every divorcee college counselor who wants you to stop seeing them and start seeing a BetterHelp waiting room screen. What if your therapist buffers? Do you get a discount? What's that? My therapist has 200 ping, and I frankly carried that personal revelation. In the past years, mental health generally has reached like peak 2020 Among Us levels of relevance. A decade ago, if you mentioned anxiety to your uncle who owns a 4-wheel drive truck, he would say that Lucifer created it to prevent Cards Against Humanity fans from procreating. But now he'd say, I'm on fluoxetine, and my pronouns are he, they. My general point is that young people right now are constantly talking about their mental health, stability, and well-being in a way that would have labeled you a witch or a heretic in the Dark Ages. Or a prophet. Let's be honest, most of the prophets were probably experiencing schizoaffective delusions, and that's why the lore was so cool. I'll tell you right now, coming across someone who believes that they are being gang-stalked on TikTok is like when the opener is better than who you came for. I didn't sign up for this, but I'm really interested, and also a bit worried. But with that comes other implications. Whole memes have sprung up around posting as though you were schizophrenic, originating from 4chan in 2016 and having spread all over the internet. While certainly facets of these memes involve generally harmless jokes by schizophrenic people, people about their own mental health, a grand majority of these memes are probably made by non-schizophrenic people treating the schizophrenic condition as spectacle. For an example of this, we need to look no further than the mythologized tale of Temple OS and its developer Terry A. Davis. Temple OS was an open-source operating system designed to fulfill the idea of a third temple as prophesied by the Bible, and it was created by a man named Terry A. Davis. You can read the Wikipedia page on it if you'd like. Davis was clearly an incredibly talented programmer and was able to think and execute his ideas in brilliant ways, but an undeniable pull to his work was his schizophrenia, his innate inability to reconcile the world around him with what happened in his mind. He would frequently use slurs and dip in and out of lucidity, eventually becoming homeless and being struck by a train in 2018, passing away at the age of 48. This topic has garnered millions upon millions of views on YouTube, from video essays to explorations of the software to archives of Terry's coding streams, and of course, tragedy plays a part in why it is so popular. We have to wonder if Terry's unfortunate passing and public struggles with schizophrenia drew people in, if the spectacle of his declension was a part of what made his delusional creations so interesting to people. And thus, the fetishization of tragedy becomes intertwined with perpetuation of itself. Fascination becomes enabling. A view is a pat on the back, and a like is a push off the cliff. Recently on TikTok, I stumbled on a video of someone complaining about the fans of the band Hers, a duo made up of Stephen Fitzpatrick and Auden Ladding. The video was a duet of somebody else's TikTok, alluding to the death of both members in a car crash in 2019, a devastating loss and tragedy. But the duet was frustrated with the fans' obsession with this fact, them somehow almost taking a grotesque satisfaction in the revelation of this calamity. And if you search Hers on TikTok, nearly every top video is talking about their deaths, sometimes in relation to their music, sometimes in relation to a drunk driving PSA, and sometimes in a vacuum. All of this has had me thinking recently about how the internet processes misery, and how agony has become a core player in our experience of digital community. Over half a year ago, I heard this piano riff for the first time, a beautiful piece of jazz improvisation by TikToker Misty Plays, with a silly little Among Us motif at the end. At the time, I didn't think too much of it, but as life marched on, it became a staple of my TikTok experience, as half of the image slideshows I saw on TikTok were marked with this very audio. Well, this very audio and something else. These slideshows were united in being indulgent in hopelessness, often captioned with just the word real. Period, and memes about loneliness, dejection, depression, and suicidal ideation. The comments on a YouTube upload of the song speak to its impact. The top comment says that the video has impacted the youth in such a negative way. Dozens of others fantasize about taking their own lives, sometimes even cracking jokes about the response to their suicide or lack thereof. I wasn't really surprised by this though, as this was only a continuation of a trend started earlier in the year by a song called 12 Stout Street by RX Poppy. 12 Stout Street is a devastating song about poverty, familial relationships, and abandonment. In the song, RX Poppy details his experience with gang violence. It's bitter, it's expressive, it's a man pouring his heart out when he knows that nothing else will help him. The song ends with him being robbed in an expensive car outside of his childhood home at 12 Stout Street. It is a heartbreaking, disconsolate expression of personal grief and trauma. So, of course, like much black trauma and grief on the internet, it was turned into a trend, a meme. Essentially, the song became emblematic of all depressive moods, suicidal ideations, anxieties, betrayals, and the calling card of those who understood was just commenting, real. So, slideshows were posted, videos where people lamented their misfortune, all scored by RX Poppy's desperate cry for help, and then the comments would be flooded with the aforementioned reels. He's just like me, and he gets it. A majority of these slideshow videos were made by and for young men, and they represent a bizarre shift in mental health awareness that I've been observing for years at this point, which is self-awareness and self-deprecation replacing thoughts of growth and bettering yourself. In Bo Burnham's Inside, I know, a piece of media that is perfect and has no flaws, Burnham says self-awareness absolves you of nothing, in reference to his analysis of a piece of media he created. In saying this, he's both acknowledging that the media he's creating is nothing, and that the analysis is nothing. If no growth or further development comes as a result of awareness, we may have been better off without it. And as mental health awareness infographics are posted to the stories of many, we should be asking ourselves, what is awareness and what is growth? As these trends move on, as I watch the young men of TikTok spiral further into despair, I notice something, that being that this is community building for them. When you watch these videos, when you relate to them, you enter a special club. There's an entire TikTok account dedicated to rating slideshow audios, which usually consist of droning duster cuts placed underneath men from pop culture wailing or screaming. They're incredibly intimate and shaking, these men shrieking about how hard they worked, how betrayed they are, how they're miserable, how it feels like the world is against them. But these audios at the same time are not fully serious. Everybody involved does have a sense that they're playing around, that some aspects of these posts are ironic or satirical or a parody, maybe. These posts are also the evolution of mental health awareness taken into a hopeless, apocalyptic world. These cut deeper and sharper than infographics on stories. They acknowledge that not only are you hopeless, you're broken. And that is, quote-unquote, real. And so as men who remain vulnerable yet closed off, defining themselves through their relationship to media do, they have started to relate to male manipulator characters, at least in a few cases I've seen. You know, Patrick Bateman's, Jokers, and the like, but not because of their rebellion or their masculinity or power or dominance, but because of their relationship to reality. They relate to the Sigmas not because they are the apex of man, but because they are the apex of instability, of despondency. Their lives aren't really worth living. As a leftist, a common phrase I hear is that late-stage capitalism is the problem. But what is that? What is late-stage capitalism, and how does it serve to obfuscate the real issues and wither away at our souls so completely? Late-stage capitalism is a very real boogeyman, but do not be mistaken. If you are complaining about late-stage capitalism, you are complaining about capitalism. A Jenga tower is not built to be stored in stasis. It must be pulled apart and stacked towards the sky until it collapses. In the case of men, late-stage capitalism is a hydra snapping at every aspect of being, but no freedom is found. Because of this, maybe hopelessness and delusion exudes a sort of magnetism, a sort of escape from capitalist patriarchal struggle and acceptance of mindless absurdity. And indeed, this may be a direct reflection of what Deleuze and Guattari posit in Schizophrenia and Capitalism, that the personality is a construct, that there's freedom from structure in fantasy. Because in reality, the problems that the men who make these slideshows face are not easy ones. Depression, dissociation, psychosis, schizophrenia, rejection, the feeling of being an outsider. These do not have one-size-fits-all solutions. Men are miserable, and they are together in that misery. The problem is not that they are open about it. The problem is that there is no certain escape for them. And when you feel so trapped by life, it becomes a revolutionary mirage to circle the drain of your own death. In Bell Hooks' The Will to Change, Men, Masculinity, and Love, Hooks writes, "When I responded with rage at being denied a toy, I was taught as a girl in a patriarchal household that rage was not an appropriate feminine feeling, that it should not only not be expressed, but be eradicated. When my brother responded with rage at being denied a toy, he was taught as a boy in a patriarchal household that his ability to express rage was good, but that he had to learn the best setting to unleash his hostility. It was not good for him to use the rage to oppose the wishes of his parents, but later, when he grew up, he was taught that rage was permitted, and that allowing rage to provoke him to violence would help him protect home and nation. But in our world, rage seems nearly useless for many young men. Yelling cannot change the world. Anger cannot fix their minds. And once you've screamed your whole life, you might crumple into the floor, a heap of flesh, having given up on change."
A big part of why I'm worried about rhetoric like this and groupthink like this is that hopelessness is not an apolitical feeling. Oftentimes, as I've seen it in my life, hopelessness is very political. It leads for people to either give up entirely or go to a radical end of the spectrum they never even knew was there. I see a lot of similarities between this rhetoric of hopelessness and the rhetoric of incel black pill communities, ones that assert that there is no hope, that the world will always be the same, nothing you can do will change it, and it's best to accept that so that you can start working within it. This is just a devastating, depressing way of living and thinking about the world, and it's only real intense mental turmoil that can bring you down there, and it worries me that these feelings can be taken advantage of by creators, by demagogues. It's a worrisome thing. I'm worried about men.
Men are trash is an adage that doesn't really have all that much meaning. To reactionaries, it is emblematic of the disgusting feminists' attempt to kill every male, to disparage the war heroes with the murderers. To intersectional feminists like myself, it is a wholly incomplete term, a liberal simplification of patriarchal disdain. Again, Hooks writes, hating men was just another way to not take men and masculinity seriously. It was simply easier for feminist women to talk about challenging and changing patriarchy than it was for us to talk about men, what we knew and did not know about the ways we wanted men to change. Better to just express our desire to have men disappear, to see them dead and gone. The fantasy of death, of vanishing, seems to express itself vividly in these slideshows on TikTok, a sort of watering hole for mostly young men who are desperate to be swallowed by their own unspoken rage and torment. Yet they are not learning, importantly, that there are still reasons to push through these feelings. Especially in slideshows that are about being ghosted by women or being in talking stages, I notice pullulating misogyny that warps and grows, infiltrating the For You page of sad, dejected young men. It's been said many times, but even the most vulnerable progressive rhetoric can be twisted into danger. Take, for instance, the growing collection of videos by leftists who notice that their off-the-grid cottagecore aesthetic videos have gradually been infiltrated by Christian nationalists and libertarians. But I think that these videos made by and for men aren't supposed to speak of a better world, or a world at all. They aren't meant to speak to a political ideology, just to rage and sadness and bitterness of the loss of hope in a world that seemed like it couldn't grow darker. Later, as a grown woman waiting for the man in my life to come home, the man who was more often than not a caring partner, but who sometimes erupted into fits of rage, I used to think maybe he will have an accident and die. Maybe he will not come home and I will be free and able to live. Women and children all over the world want men to die so they can live. This is the most painful truth of male domination, that men wield patriarchal power in daily life in ways that are awesomely life-threatening, that women and children cower in fear and various states of powerlessness, believing that the only way out of their suffering, their only hope, is for men to die, for the patriarchal father not to come home. Women and female and male children dominated by men have wanted them dead because they believe that these men are not willing to change. They believe that men who are not dominators will not protect them. They believe that men are hopeless. Casual misandry is a subversion of casual misogyny. To me, it can be very funny, but even joking misandry can be revealing of how someone thinks about themselves, about others, about men. Now, on social media, we see a rising amount of tweets about what men are and aren't allowed to do, what makes them zesty or fruity, or which men have a little bit of spice to them. I miss when men would die in wars. As a man, why are you watching Euphoria? Men aren't allowed to listen to Mitski. She is for women only. Most likely said by a white woman on that last one. These tweets are funny. They can be very, very funny, but I would be remiss if I didn't consider that they directly uphold and venerate patriarchal thought for some. I say for some because they are clearly satirical, at least to me, but many of the people tweeting them are still in some way acknowledging that men becoming interested in other things, venturing into media or art is an invasion, that they are going out of their box. So even without saying it, a joke tweet about this sort of thing can be a silent, shame-ridden glare. Once again, Bell Hooks writes, in How Can I Get Through to You, family therapist Terrence Real tells how his sons were initiated into patriarchal thinking even as their parents worked to create a loving home in which anti-patriarchal values prevailed. He tells of how his young son Alexander enjoyed dressing as a Barbie until boys playing with his older brother witnessed his Barbie persona and let them know by their gaze and their shocked, disapproving silence that his behavior was unacceptable. Without a shred of malevolence, the stare my son received transmitted a message. You are not to do this. And the medium that message was broadcast in was a potent emotion. Shame. 3, Alexander was learning from the rules. A 10-second wordless transaction was powerful enough to dissuade my son from that instant forward from what had been a favorite activity. I call such moments of induction the normal traumatization of boys. To indoctrinate boys into the rules of patriarchy, we force them to feel pain and to deny their feelings. And as men become more separated from themselves, from the feelings that make them tick and the experiences that built them, there will come along people waiting to take advantage of this delusion, of this dejection, the contradiction lying at the heart of young, broken men. The one being that expression doesn't kill the problem at its root. So here come people like Andrew Tate or Sneeko, virulent misogynists who have eschewed viability in the marketplace of ideas entirely, opting to rely on reactionary talking points and appeals to the volatile emotional state of their audience. Delusion in this case is a weapon, a tool hoisted by a dejected, lonely young man hoping to find strength amongst other men through their mutual abuse and hatred of women. Along with the mental freedom of elasticity of delusion as a process of exploratory, liberatory thought comes the possibilities of delusion as destruction, as the creation of fascistic rhetoric, not bound by the logic of reality.
Community can be a deciding factor in how you live your life and what you feel confident or secure enough to do or to feel. But I think the internet has shown us that community is not an innately positive thing. The longer I've been on the internet and the longer I've watched other people be on the internet, the more I've seen communities take people in and distort their views or take advantage of them in nefarious ways. What becomes more difficult about this, though, is that sometimes you don't even need to talk to a person to indoctrinate them into a group or to make them a part of a community. Sometimes they just need to follow you or watch a video or be selected by a specific part of the algorithm. When I write the word depression pipeline in this title, I don't think that there is a pipeline that is leading people to being diagnosed with clinical depression. What I'm trying to say through using the rhetoric of the alt-right pipeline and comparing it to depression is that hopelessness, that dejection, that sadness can be taken advantage of. And some of these slideshows and these trends leave a sad taste in my mouth because it's very true that years ago I might have been very happy to see men talk about even half of these things. But nowadays I have to be worried that they're only talking about them to not address the core causes or only to engage in this counterproductive back and forth of giving up in front of other people so that they feel strong enough to do it themselves. I planned months ago to do a video on Sneeko and Andrew Tate, but I didn't plan to do a video on them because they were popular. I planned to do a video on them because I was scared. Sadness and depression and just being lost in life are so easily transferred into rage or vitriol, and I remember the night that I found out about who Sneeko was and I watched videos of him and I saw that he was platforming Nicolas J. Fuentes. I was mortified. I was really scared because it felt like we were moving backwards so quickly. Say what you will about BreadTube or progressive YouTube or whatever you'd like to call it, but it felt as though we had made some progress, but we just aren't. We're nowhere near that. And that broke me. As a trans woman, I experienced a form of boyhood, though I do not remember it that well. I was friends with people who shared this hopelessness I observe now, whose rage or manipulation found its footing through that hopelessness. I saw people destroy themselves and others just to cover up truths or actions. I enjoyed none of it, and I'm glad that I am past it. I never truly was a boy. I definitely was never truly a man. But to the other people who relate with these TikTok slideshows, with commenting real and feeling nothing but grief or otherness, no feeling is a death sentence. No rejection by a woman is indicative enough of worth. Blame is an addicting drug, but there is much to gain in reflection. I've hurt people in my life, even recently. I've been mean or cruel or rude. I've been thoughtless and harsh. I've woken up my girlfriend with my sobs, and I've laid on my carpet thinking about the afterlife so many times. What makes life worth living is not the absence of sorrow or trauma or turmoil. It's the presence of experience. It is still worth it to try therapy, to see if meds work for you, to open up in ways that are not manipulative or overwhelming, to learn. To try to exact change on a personal level that makes life less insufferable is not to accept the state of the world or your mind, but to admit that there is potential for things to get better, for you to get better. It is not true that men are unwilling to change. It is true that many men are afraid of change. It is true that masses of men have not even begun to look at the ways that patriarchy keeps them from knowing themselves, from being in touch with their feelings, from loving. To know love, men must be able to let go of the will to dominate. They must be able to choose life over death. They must be willing to change. Anywho, thank you for watching this video. Thank you to Cometeer for sponsoring. If you, this is like a cool video for like a coffee brand to sponsor. So I don't know, if you want to see me make more cool videos, go check out Cometeer, especially if you're a coffee person. And as always, thank you for watching. Patreon. If we reach 1,800 by the end of the year, we're $100 away. I will make an hour-long video of the patron's choice. So go do that. Check that out. Rock with that. It's cool. My friend Alexis
mutual aid thing, needs money for bills. Link in the description if you want to support that, and link to their TikTok and stuff if you want to support them through that. Okay, be kind to yourself, be kind to others, change yourself, work on yourself, and know that there's a version of you that can be loved at any moment. Okay, and as always, thank you for watching, and it's been a pleasure. Bye.